Welcome to She Blaze, where we're bringing you cannabis culture from a woman's point of view. And as always, here to elevate the cannabis industry. I'm one of your hosts, Ice Dawson, Cannabis Socialite.
And I am Dasheeda Dawson, the WeedHead.
Hey, WeedHead.
Hey.
Okay, well, on today's episode of She Blaze, America is on lockdown, but everybody's wondering how it will affect the cannabis industry.
Yes, we got a very, very ridiculous show today. I mean, I got on a mask, y'all, because it's real in these streets. I'm in a house right now with 5 additional people, and I love them, their family, and that's been great. I'm high on that, but I've definitely been playing with my mask all day and making sure that I'm covered up. It's so important. I got my mask, and I'm high on my Highmark hand sanitizer. So every time we drop some jewels, I'm going to take a little bit of the dip because we dropping some germs on y'all today.
And every time you hear a jewel, put some hand sanitizer on yourself. You know what I'm saying?
Gotta have a game there. Yeah, so we're high on being in quarantine with, at least family, a lot of fun, homeschooling again. And, I'm glad to just have the appropriate level of cannabinoids for this time period.
Oh, well, the cannabinoids is definitely essential during the quarantine. And really, hopefully, people's plugs are staying with the supply because there's a whole bunch of demand, if you know what I mean.
Yes. I mean, we're going to jump into that, of course. But, I want to just shout out the folks that I have interacted with, gloves, masks showing up. Having the appropriate attire always helps and makes me feel like I'm dealing with a professional. And that's been across different states, but I've been sort of grounded, same as you, over the last 3 weeks or so. So
yeah, it's totally crazy. It definitely took us, Mercury retrograde and She Blaze, upside down, but we're back with it, and I am definitely ready to get in these hot topics. Okay,
let's do it.
This is juicy. So our first hot topic has to be about professional sports and cannabis. During this quarantine, all of the sports were either postponed or completely just canceled, from the draft to the NBA. So no finals this year, you guys, right now. The Olympics even got moved to next year.
It just blew my mind, yo. I had to take a hit on that just a little. I was like, no, not the Olympics. Oh, no.
Yes, girl, things are getting realer than real. The MLB, they've actually postponed their training camps because, their spring training camps start soon. So it is crazy. And, when capitalists cancel things, it must be serious.
For real, because we already talking about uncanceling, and then we haven't even reached our peak, but let's not even get started on Corona yet.
Coronavirus! My party.
Coronavirus, yes.
So yes, professional sports and cannabis is really a hot topic right now because the Major League Baseball has actually sparked the movement to allow cannabis players to, use cannabis and not be prosecuted. So not like literal prosecution, but you get fined. You also could be suspended too. So the fact that they are loosening the reins on cannabis lets you know that cannabis is moving more mainstream. And they want to protect their players during this absence. And so as far as cannabis, they removed it from their drugs of abuse. And even though they would have to do a treatment program if they use cannabis, they won't get fined or punished for using it or not completing the treatment program. They're actually kind of trying to treat it like alcohol. Does that sound kind of familiar?
Yeah, it does. It sounds like what we're doing in every single state trying to get adult use. But I mean, we have to remember, and I kind of got to remind people that cannabis is medicine first. And I mean, I'm going to shout out the MLB. My son's favorite sport is baseball. One of the things that people don't know is that unofficially the MLB has supported cannabis. It's one of the drugs they don't really test for as often. And it has been pretty widely known that basically it, you don't get tested in the MLB for cannabis while you do for others. I'm also really impressed with how they've taken a focus on opioid abuse and the ways that they can utilize this movement for cannabis as a way to also walk back some of the things related to fentanyl and some of the other things that are really more abusive. I don't love the fact that you have to have a treatment plan, but it's not mandatory. You don't get a fine. You don't get punished if you don't use it. You could say, nah, bruh, if you don't want to. And so in that way, that doesn't feel like alcohol unless you are alcoholic. Using cannabis one time, especially during your off season, that is still in your system 3 months, 4 months later, is no indication that you have a problem in any way, shape, or form. So I think that that's, again, kissing both sides of the coin, but it's still a step in the right direction.
Well, hopefully as these doctors and medical professionals partner with these professional sports, they're teaching these people how to use cannabis, and they're teaching them that even though you're making these policies, they're not actually based on science.
Hallelujah. Let me take a little hit of my sanitizer because that's some germs you done dropped on them. I mean, also, just so you know, in addition to the fact that we're doing mostly bro science, we've had to walk back quite a bit. And I think that these are precedents that we can utilize as we're starting to see more people, more professional players come to testify. And I think the next one, as we talk about MLB, NFL is certainly where we've seen a lot of the players. I just want to give a shout out again to Cannabis Socialite for picking some of the best hot topics. It's always so juicy. And unmute yourself, please, sweetie, because you're unmuted right now.
I know I'm muted. So sometimes when we're having such a great discussion and we're already so naturally loud, your sound echoes on my computer, and I could not find my headphones, y'all. I'm so sorry.
No, we've been missing in action, so we here.
We are here. I was actually going to make a comment on it when you finished, because I know it is pretty annoying when it's just double feedback. So I've been pretty I'm just trying to learn from the past and step up my game. So sometimes it just means I have to mute myself.
I love it. Well, good to know. And I definitely am excited to hear what the NFL has in store for cannabis, because they're also doing a few things as well.
Girl, like everyone, between my dad and like all my homies that, knew me before cannabis, because I was like a huge sports fanatic, especially the NFL. They basically tagged me or set me all about the NFL, which has actually trying to end suspension for players using cannabis, which is, they're like, oh, now you can watch football again. And I'm like, I don't know how if that's how that works now, but we'll see. I'm gonna remain optimistic. But anyway, this policy is being floated to the Players Association to get approved. Team owners already have approved the deal, and basically it will no longer suspend players for using cannabis. As we know, it is medicine. It makes you feel good. There's a lot of things we've seen players, retired players, talk about how cannabis has benefited them after football. So I am really excited, but also like this is a little bit of a baby step because there's not transparency. With the suspension, will they still be fined? Now, before they would be suspended and fined a hefty price. Football players already don't make as much money as most professional sports. So, I'm curious, are they just no longer being suspended, but they still have to pay, the consumption tax? Or are you eliminating suspensions and fines for using cannabis?
Well, it's just baby steps at this point. I mean, shout out to Marvin Washington. Mike James is actually someone who basically came out while he was in the actual NFL to say, hey, I need this for my medicine. And, I think this is the right step in the right, direction. But of course, it does fall a bit short, knowing that Dr. Sue Sicily and a few other doctors have been working with NFL players on an FDA-approved trial. They are working with the Players Association, so they are getting firsthand knowledge of the benefits. And it still feels like, even though this could help prevent CTE, even CBD just alone, that's not something that they're willing to just go outright and say. There's still a lot of pushback on even the believability of CTE, even though we've seen so many post-mortem brains, so after death brains of NFL players that show CTE is real and it manifests itself in a very physical way in your brain. And so I find that's irresponsible, and I think that's why I'm not a proponent, among many other reasons. So the NFL, I took a little hand sanitizer when you said this is gonna make you watch the NFL again, because I don't think so. That's some germs on you right there, because I don't think so. They've got a lot to do besides cannabis to make me feel like this is not not a barbarous kind of approach to sport that is actually injuring our men collectively. And certainly within very poor Black and brown neighborhoods, they're injuring them earlier and earlier. I just watched a really interesting Netflix documentary about that. And this poor boy was playing since 8th grade, which showing once he died, his brain showed damage of that long, at least, that he was, getting severe concussions. We've got to know the science behind cannabis and CTE before we start sending our boys to the field.
I completely agree. Are you talking about the Aaron Hernandez? Yes. So I was in tears. Well, I am on Netflix binge at this point. Between Hulu, Netflix, Disney Plus, and Amazon, they are keeping me quite comfortable.
So everybody check out Aaron Hernandez story. It's deep.
And, the crazy thing is that he basically was using cannabis and other things to treat this CTE that you can't technically see until death. And, he kind of got punished for it.
Oh, that's why I was in tears. They talked about it like, chain smoking weed. I'm like, yo, you lucky he was chain smoking weed. He probably would have killed a few people, but earlier than that. I think that people like to use that still as the demonizing. It's the, the smoking gun, no pun intended, but it's not. If he hadn't been using that, he may have been dead earlier. He may have gone crazier earlier, committed suicide earlier. He was medicating himself and not getting the support he needed for nearly 20 years, y'all. Like, that's wrong.
We calling them men, but ultimately he was 27, 28 when he took his life. So they are getting these multi-million, sometimes less, contract deals before they're even 21, 22. So these young men aren't even fully developed. So, between not being fully developed, but continuously putting your body in a car accident every play, because that's what the science said about football. They are quite lucky he was chain smoking cannabis. And when he wasn't able to chain smoke cannabis, baby took his life. So, not for nothing, they got to look at the science. They have to look at the facts. And we got to understand that, again, just because it wasn't tested in America or made in America doesn't mean it's not scientifically correct.
That's so true. I want to shout out Israel. I'm really excited about what's coming out of Tel Aviv. Oh my goodness. That's got to be another episode, because I could totally geek out on you. But the NBA is not trying to be left behind, y'all. And so they got some stuff that they're working on as well.
Right.
What's the scoop there?
No players left behind is right, as we are on our quarantine and coronavirus. The NBA was suspended and they ended their season. They was like, forget, playoffs. We rather people be safe. And during this time, they are actually working with the Players Association to come to agreement not to test players during this absence. Now, this will probably be one of the longest breaks that professional players have seen, probably since signing contracts. And so, you know, they don't want them to come back and feel rushed to clean their system in a way. So as we know, working in the cannabis industry, we hear a lot of retired basketball players letting us know, like, hey, actually, I was consuming while being a player, and I had to do all these crazy things just to get it on my system. So take a breath of relief, you guys. You may not be tested, but don't do opioids. Stick to the kid.
No opioids. Thank you. Also, you know, just so you know, folks know, we were talking about this earlier. Dr. Rachel Knox was on with Canaclusive on IG Live, and they were talking about the potential negative effects of ibuprofen and other non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, NSAIDs, on coronavirus. So just again, as I look at the athletes that are now on their off, they tend to do more NSAIDs, do more opioids, do more cannabis. So that's why the NBA is doing this. And for a lot of the real stars, they were expecting to be playing in the Olympics too. So they really got a break. And I hope that they use it to really rejuvenate their body with full whole plant treatment. So I'm a big proponent. Go ahead, find your plug, smoke your weed, and make your plans to travel to the legal markets and see what they've got, because there is going to be, I think, that point where the cannabis industry will restart again in full effect. In some ways, that makes me really excited as to what our real, like, super hot, super main topic for this episode is how this coronavirus has really impacted and will continue to impact the cannabis industry. But I'm shouting out the NBA for at least trying here. This is a blip, but it's nowhere near where they need to be. You were probably talking about Matt Barnes, who talks very much, and Uncle Cliffy. They talk about their cannabis usage, and they're, you know, heavy involved in the cannabis space now. Al Harrington. There's a lot of big brands as well as big names that have come forward, and they are big proponents, and they're putting their foot a little bit on the neck of the NBA. I would also like to shout out Ice Cube's league, because they've already pretty much been in agreement with you. Yes, CBD. I knew you would know it. Yes, the big three. They continue to thrive, and they're treating their retired players the way they should. It's like ability to kind of get out there and still perform and do well. So we're going to see basketball players, I think, do better. I'm a former basketball player, so I know I got issues and I use cannabis for it. So this is real personal for me. They got to get it together. I hope the WNBA follows suit, because what's good for the guys should be good for us too. Thank you. It looked like Ice is about to say something real good here, but she is frozen at this point, and I do not know if that means that she will be joining us. It has been a very interesting coronavirus time period, and we are about to jump into discussing ways that the coronavirus has actually made the cannabis industry flourish. But she is back, it looks like. Are you back with us, Isis? Ice. Nope, now she's frozen again. Oh my goodness, we've had such a tough time. I'm here with a mask on. She's frozen, even though she's comfortable somewhere. She's going to rejoin us in a second, but basically, I hope the WNBA is doing the same thing. It actually is sad to me to not see any type of correspondence around women's sports as much. We've seen the World Health Organization, we've seen the Olympic Committee talk about cannabis, but none of the major women's sports have talked about the use of cannabis. And the truth of the matter is that endometriosis and just regular cramps, any arthritic pains, the same issues that athletes have with inflammation, women have that plus the uterus. So it's like the odds of us being users is actually pretty high. And so therefore they should probably be looking at the women's associations, and that includes the WNBA. All right, she's back. She's back. Ice, tell us where we're headed to next. What were you about to say? You look like you were really about to drop some real germs on us. I'm ready with my hand sanitizer.
LOL. Well, first of all, everybody's using the doggone Wi-Fi at home because they're all quarantined, so they are slowing my bandwidth. So F them. And yeah, so I had this whole thing of shade, but it may be a sign to just bring it on to the whole entire topic that everyone's so anxious to hear about, is really the coronavirus and how it's affecting the cannabis industry. Before we actually, David and I, quarantine ourselves, we went to the dispensary one last time, and I will tell you, they were not enacting the CDC law or requirements, as nobody was standing 6 feet apart. The lines were wrapped around the building, and even though the girl had on gloves, she was still coughing. So, coughing with the gloves on. I'm like, ain't you supposed to take them off? You know, there was hand sanitizer at everything. So me and David, every time we touched a little new packy, we put on a hand sanitizer. As we're learning, coronavirus actually stays on materials for an extended period of time. And it's also a little bit airborne too, as we learn more and more about it. So we will definitely have to bring you guys up on the scoop of the cannabis industry, which, you know, all these state of emergencies, especially in these legalized states, are deeming cannabis as essentials.
Yes, girl. Folks are talking about it. That is the tea on the street, that cannabis has gone from illegal to essential in 18 months. I just saw that as a tweet, and I was like, yo, we got to retweet that, because that is profound. At some point, these governors of states that haven't legalized yet, like New York, I know we're still working on it, but they were calling it still a gateway drug, right, in middle of 2018. And here we are in 2020, and we are seeing right away that there's a significant change in what essential and illegal means. If it's essential in these stores, in these states, then it's probably essential in our legacy market as well. So I'm just pleased to at least get that type of nod. Of course, it doesn't help when they also make the alcohol stores essential, because that's telling a different story. That is not the same thing. Again, cannabis is medicine first. Alcohol is not, unless you're using rubbing alcohol, child, and you want to clean a wound. Okay. I definitely
don't know too many people that, as we've heard reports of different people making their own hand sanitizer and burning the heck out of their skin.
Yes, actually, an old couple not only, did something like that. There was another couple that was trying to use a different type of drug than they were supposed to. They wound up getting rushed to the hospital. Like, here's the thing. If that's not your expertise, stay away. This is not the time to pick up a new joint. Like David posted about everybody want to be making edibles. You haven't even made a regular box of brownies, and now you want to make an infused Rice Krispie treat? Like, nah, bruh. You just need to chill out, right? And do what you do best. And that's not it. And I do think people are ODing.
Right. Or make your own Rice Krispie treat for yourself and nobody else. Like, no, I don't want to buy it. You know what I'm saying? I want to buy a real one you made. So.
Yeah. But that said, let's jump into some of the real tea, which is the real numbers around the cannabis industry since coronavirus has sort of transitioned. Now, this is a global virus. It's a global industry. So naturally, we're not going to just talk about the impact on the U.S., but we got to talk about all over, y'all. Even where we get in our mask and stuff back in the day. Now, I don't know if we're going to do that going forward. But
well, unlike some other countries, people price gouge in America, capitalist price gouge. So a lot of our essentials are going to be priced higher. And California has even seen a spike in sales over 100%. So, when you're hearing about that, especially California already upped their taxes again, people are still willing to do that. And really, we're going to get to a point in the cannabis industry, is the supply going to be able to hold up the demand? We in the cannabis industry, like many other industries in America, rely heavily on China. Okay. And unfortunately, this started in China as far as the outbreak beginning. And it really has taken effect, which we'll probably see in the next couple months, on the cannabis industry. Normally around the time China shut down, they have the Chinese New Year. Now that only lasts for 2 weeks, and you see a very slowdown in really outputs and exports. Well, at this point, that 2 weeks turned into 6 weeks. Now it's almost 8 weeks, and people are not going to be able to see the difference with. People are going to be able to see the difference with packaging, vapes, all the vapes, any vape, electronic or TC is made in China. All of the materials come from China. If you like to use disposable vapes, you might have to wait for a while until you'll be able to get another one.
Yes, no, you dropped some jewels there. The reality is that China is where most of the world is actually importing from. So this is going to be a global impact period, but the US is one of the largest customers of China. And we talk about this a lot, but we are. And part of it is because of the low cost of things like mask and packaging. We have worked on many projects. We are comparing pricing for domestic packaging versus overseas. You can do things in Bangladesh. You can also do things in China, and they can be somewhat comparable. But oftentimes, China, who runs their warehouses and their manufacturing mills, businesses year round outside of the Chinese New Year, which we plan around in the manufacturing industry. Like at Target, we know when it is. It's on our calendar. We don't get a vacation, but we prepare to make our orders in advance to make sure that we're prepared for it. And it's no different in the cannabis space. About 90% of the world's vaping and e-cigarette hardware is produced in Shenzhen, which is basically just closed 1,000 factories. That's just, again, in the vape world. But the packaging is another one. We are going to see upcharge if we start using primarily packaging in domestic, because the runs are never as big, you can't produce as large numbers, and you're not going to get the economies of scale on pricing. It's worth it sometimes when you have to wait 6 weeks for your product if you're paying cents on the dollar, right? As opposed to $1 plus for the same exact thing made in the US. If nothing else, this is going to show a hole in our supply chain, not just in cannabis, but overall. Because so many things, whether it's the hangers on the in a store, are coming out of China, girl. It is definitely something I'm concerned about. Another thing, and I'll say this because I know you're about to jump in. Sorry, hemp is the other thing. This is the world's largest producer of hemp. Most of our CBD extract and isolates are coming from China. A lot of people don't know that as well, but that is also going to be an impact. And maybe that might help us as we start to do more cultivation here, and U.S. wants to be more of an exporter because China may be exporting less.
Well, that's going to be tough because remember, we talked about it last season where we found out and told our followers that China is the leading export of hemp, and really they also have a hold on the hemp seeds. So hopefully y'all got y'all hemp seeds before the new Chinese New Year. Real talk, because you are going to have to wait, and we would highly advise to look into clones. Also, what most people don't know is that a lot of nutrients that we use for our cultivation is made in China as well. So China holds the key to a lot of our supplies, and we're actually going to feel it not only in price surging of products, but also in the stock market, as Cusco Holdings get a lot of their things from China. You got to worry about their stock and what's happening. And, if you are interested in stock, maybe you should probably get it now, because this is probably going to be the cheapest they'll be all year at this point.
That's actually what everybody's been emailing me. Of course, we got to get the Ivy investor on here, Courtney Stevenson, but that's my soror. She has definitely been talking about it. Folks have been talking about that this is the best time. I don't know. I think it is volatile, and I'm more concerned about the actual operations. And, that's my business expertise as a strategist. But I definitely think that it would be good for us to kind of chat with her about ways that people can capitalize on how coronavirus is impacting the stock market, particularly as it pertains to cannabis. Now, one thing I want to say is, what is a real impact is how closely the legal market is starting to mirror the legacy market. Let's give a quick shout out to Illinois, but a whole bunch of other places that are starting to do things like curbside weed sales, y'all, which is basically what the heck we do in the legacy market for the most part. So I definitely think I want to talk a little bit about what states have been doing as they deem marijuana and cannabis stores as a necessity or essential. What are the things that are being done to make it easier for people to follow that 6-foot rule? Because a lot of these places are really, really small too.
Well, they are doing, like you said, in Illinois, they are doing curbside sales to medical patients. So that's also a little like asterisk in the paragraph, right? Like, you know, if you're an adult use patient, you got to go in there and risk your health. But if you're a medical patient, a lot of times you're probably 100% immune compromised. So we're going to give you it to your car. So that is definitely interesting. I'm wondering how their tax is going to look like. Do they include their taxes? Do they pre-buy? You know what I mean? Like, how does that work?
I think that's a good question, Ice. I've been thinking about it myself. I think logistically, it is part of the service. Hopefully these stores are able to take on this, and maybe that will give them some leeway to do more delivery dispensing and you know, really push for it, even though this is a temporary thing for medical patients only. I'll also just shout out again, this is why it's so important that if you qualify for a medical card, go get it, because there are benefits. And I assure you from the work that I'm doing in Oregon, shout out to the Oregon Cannabis Commission, that there will be precedents that will be set that allow for the medical community to really be the beneficiary of legalization. I know that a lot of people focus on adult use because that's the money, but there are so many states that don't even have a 10 or 20% penetration of the amount of people who are suffering from the ailments in that state that qualify for a card. So imagine what those sales would look like. And if you know you can get curbside delivery, or in the case of states of emergency, it's now deemed essential. In some places, it could easily be deemed essential just for medical patients. You know what I mean? And so I think as you think of more conservative states down south that might be thinking about this, it's in your best interest, just as, again, a plug, to get your medical card if you qualify. In my opinion, I think that they're going to have to figure out a way to regulate in Illinois what's going to happen. I don't know how they're going to, if they're going to take everything to a cashless system that's handheld. It must be the case that you have to place an online order, and similar to, like, you know, when you do a drive-through and you get up to the window finally and they don't have your order ready and they tell you to go park over there. I think that that's probably what's going to happen, where there's a, you know, park over there. And I would encourage people to follow the Chick-fil-A model. I'm not normally one to shout them out, but they got a strong understanding of how to take their iPads out to the streets to make sure that drive-through or curbside really is curbside. And if you have a code that similar to FedEx, I'm using all the benchmarks. So again, nothing is new technology. Similar to FedEx, that you've made an order, if you have that code emailed to you, that should be enough for the person who is curbside to pull up your order. We have all the technology to make this be very smooth and to still be taxed appropriately. It doesn't have to be like the legacy market, but it's still, if you ask me, like the legacy market.
Well, I will tell you, those taxes make you rethink wanting to go back to the legacy market, real talk. However, like you said, they are adopting a lot of new things. They're also allowing even though their adult use patients won't be able to do curbside pickups, they are allowing them to do online orders in Illinois. So that's definitely a step up. Now, I'm just fingers crossing that they have enough supply to meet the demand, because word on the curb, they didn't even have enough flour for, like, you know, first couple weeks or whatever.
Girl, I went there for my stop. Shout out to Kiana Hughes. Shout out to the SMART organization. We did a stop for sharing success in cannabis, which, by the way, is no longer at the moment. It's on pause because of what's going on, but no cannabis, no flower was in the store. It was a little tough to be in Chicago. And so, you know, I was a little disappointed, of course. I wouldn't have also, I'm a good citizen. I don't have a Chicago card, even though I have medical cards. I don't have an Illinois card. I have other medical card, but I wouldn't want to be an adult use patient taking from people who have paid into the medical marijuana marijuana system and actually truly have ailments that need the flower. It is slim pickings right now across the board. And I think that's going to make a real demand issue, especially if we don't have the containers to package it in, right? We get a backup there, which we just talked about with China, especially with when you have full on stay at home orders like they have in the full state of California. Imagine if you're a manufacturer that's part of an essential business, you are now trying to determine how to go half staff, which is certainly going to impact how well your productivity is in terms of harvesting. This is an important time period for California and for the market, not just for sports and all the other stuff, but this is the time that we start to see what we're looking like as far as crops are concerned and understanding what's going to be available in the market by the time September and October roll around. It's just a tough time for the cannabis industry on a product side. If we had interstate distribution, then Oregon would be able to help out quite a few people in terms of their availability, but we don't. And because of that limitation, and Senator Blumenauer is certainly out of Oregon, certainly pushing for it, and this is the case for it. But because of that limitation, it means that some states are not going to be able to service the demand in their state at some point, despite the fact that they're doing everything to keep the industry going and be, in that it's essential, but sometimes essential becomes a burden.
Well, I will definitely say this, y'all got some time at home, y'all self-quarantine, y'all need to figure out how to get some home grow and, grow your own, because, we already talking about the nutrients can't even come from China either. So, I would just drop that little hint, like, if you got space and time, figure it out, because the supply will dry up, like you said. And we actually are seeing home delivery available in Colorado, isn't that correct? Which it wasn't before. So it is very curious. You spoke a lot about California. We were just talking about how California was letting go, a lot of their employees before this outbreak. So, I have no idea how they're going to be able to manage after already letting go so many employees, how they're going to manage cutting back half of them. And a lot of the delivery services in California have basically disappeared. So how is that going to work? I am very, very curious. And really, if you're staying at home in California, hopefully you got enough to hold you down, if you know what I mean.
Or somebody who's really growing that fire, because somebody who you trust. I'm not a proponent of, again, breaking the law, because I've done so much to kind of, again, get to my career. But when the law keeps your hands tied, sometimes if it's medicine and it's going to be something that helps you get through this stressful time, if anxiety is the issue, yes, you can get hemp-based CBD, and I want to shout out that as well. But it is a very different thing when you've been on a regimen for you to all of a sudden fall off of it. For autoimmune issues, being on a regimen is what keeps you feeling normal and keeps you feeling good. And it's not just a regimen of cannabinoids, I will say, whether it's yoga, getting good sleep, meditation, eating well. Some of these things are going to go and be an impact for folks in a coronavirus. Shoot, I just said I'm in a house with two 16-year-olds and one 18-year-old. We literally got to keep the food in the car like it's Christmas, y'all, to put it out and replenish it while they sleep, because that's how much they eat. My little autoimmune self, one, I'm gonna keep a mask on, because everybody, for the most part, they got their own hygiene choices, and we trying to keep the house clean. But the other thing is that it's just more people than one would like. But even though I love being around my family, I could give them something, they could give me something. And I am not necessarily going to be the first one to the table to eat the things that we're putting together either. So I think sometimes when you're the patient, these times are compromising, period, for the patient. And not having cannabis is part of that whole slew of things that we're all struggling with and trying to figure out how do we navigate it. I'm definitely interested in the home grow, and that's made me more interested in taking online courses as a result. That is the one area that I'll, in with that is a surge. Cannabis education more than ever is important now, especially as we start to see more mainstream, right? We see what's happening in mainstream sports, seeing what's happening in the conversation around our presidential elections. I mean, we basically judge Biden and Bernie in a lot of ways in the cannabis industry around what their green theme is in some ways, among many things. But that is one point that is like, yo, I can't get with old Biden when he don't even really understand what's going on with this, right? Because actually cannabis probably could help him too, to be honest. But it's one of those things where it is a state of living for us. And so it becomes really important for us to figure out how do, we learn how to better do this industry and share more of this industry while we have a captive audience. And so we're seeing a lot more of our cannabis community go live every day. In between the D-Nice, house party, quarantine party, you're going to also see a lot of people doing education. And I'll just give a quick plug because I have the Intro to Cannabis Business course that we are dropping down to $50 because we want as many people to take part of this. You're at home, you're homeschooling your kids probably. This is a great opportunity to also learn about the cannabis industry in a way that doesn't have the pressure of, oh, I got to get ready for this conference I'm going to. No, it's postponed, boo. You need to learn the lingo and you need to learn the real science behind cannabis before you step out with the wolves potentially and start having conversations about ways you want to get into the industry. And certainly ancillary businesses and using your credentials are still one of the best ways. But yeah, cannabis education right now online has been through the roof. We're seeing so many people with webinars, conversations, IG live. It's actually been a blessing in some ways because I've tuned into so many people that I've missed them speaking in person because of the fact that you can't travel to everything.
That is definitely true. I have a lot of different opinions about politics and economics. So, I'm so glad that you have dropped it down during this quarantine, because even though we're talking about education, at the end of the day, we're forgetting that most people got laid off. Right, they weren't just paid time off for their homeschooling kids, right? So shout out to you for always understanding how important it is to be affordable for the everyday person. So that is awesome and great. We definitely are in a position and where coronavirus has stopped our bag, right? And so these courses, these lives could really help link back the bag that you just lost through coronavirus. Because I already know I done lost a lot of money through. I'm like, dang, y'all done shut down everything. I'm like, are you sure we just can't have like 30 people in here? Like maybe they don't have to be under 35,
Okay, trunk. Okay, trunk. Yo, I mean, we just have to respect the science. The epidemiologists are not wrong. We need to flatten the curve, do our job. I've been in the house for 3 weeks straight, y'all. Like, it is real. And I've been really animated about the fact that we need to do that in order for us to do our part. And I think that means not trying to, basically give up on the science behind it before it actually happens. We haven't reached our peak. So we will be dealing with this at least for a few more weeks at minimum based on the presidential conferences. But I hope we, are realizing that it's probably going to be at least till May. Most of the conferences in cannabis have been postponed. The ones as far out into June. We are effectively going to have a 420 that is like a digital 420. We probably need to get D-Nice to figure out what he's going to be spending on the ones and twos for us so that we can enjoy the month all month long. Although our sister's birthday is 420, Imani Dawson, share her out. And so she's already planning on celebrating. But this was the month that it was going to be 420 all month long. And so in that way, the industry is being impacted because all of the celebrations, all of the potential sponsorships and marketing opportunities have gone out the window.
Not potential. If you paid for these damn sponsorships, your money is like poof. You know what I'm saying? So not potential. Like, come on, we've paid for sponsorships 6 to 7 months before the event sometimes, and And so, you know, if you pay for your sponsorship in December or November, you could kiss that money goodbye, and you hope that they know what they're doing these little online webinars, okay? Because, you know, Corona has stopped the bag. Whether you spent it to do the bag at South by Southwest, or, you know, did it for any number of festivals during 420 month, it is poof. You and you can't get it back, and it ain't tax deductible, and they have no idea how they're going to get your money back. So, you know, pray. And thank
you are hilarious. You dropping so many germs on people. Dang, hit your hand sanitizers, y'all, because she is right. I mean, these are things that we are struggling with. We were slated to be at South by Southwest, bringing sharing success in cannabis. I will give a shout out to South by Southwest because they did take the mentor program and they are moving it to online. But to your point, I have confidence, since they've been doing festivals for years, that they'll be able to figure it out. But it's still digital. We deal in digital all the time. I could be frozen for half of it, and that's not going to necessarily inspire confidence in the person who's getting that mentorship to take a course or buy a book or whatever it is that we drive during that time. I think it has been very daunting to try to figure out the best way for us to ensure
yeah, so like we said, it is very hard doing these live action webinars. I mean, you guys have been seeing us do it for the last year and some change. And, you know, internet could definitely be skeptical. And definitely if everybody and their mama is at home using the damn internet too, okay? So good luck with that. And I'm an events girl. So even though I know how to do the digital events and virtual things, I still like to get dressed up. I still like to go out. You know, I understand what Trump is saying or what these doctors is saying. You know, I am a conspiracy theorist all the way. And so, like, as far as I'm concerned, as long as I don't see a motherfucking zombie, we are okay. Because I am going nuts in this house. I want to go out, but because I refuse to be bullied by my family, I'm not going out.
Are you calling me a bully because I'm telling you to flatten the curve, girl?
Well, F-U-C-K, the curve is really what I want to say. But, you know, I'm going to let y'all live because I don't care. Really, if we got a quarantine, fine. But I mean, like, y'all really like y'all like getting into my hot girl summertime. So all these damn crutches I've been doing is basically going to go to waste. And that's not okay with me right now.
It is nowhere near hot girl summer. We just started Q2 in this upcoming week. So we have plenty of time for that ab to be out. And let's be real, there will be ability to travel for when those things open up again. This is the opportunity to build your empires. So I'm hoping that you'll see more from She Blaze, despite the fact that we will be in, you know, quarantining. And you will definitely see the WeedHead on a number of different webinars. We've got stuff going on with Can Occlusive U. We've got stuff going on with oh my goodness, with a Rebel Minded Society. We've got a couple of webinars coming up with Women Grown NYC. So we will be very, very busy on the internets. And you can certainly make sure that you follow us so that you can stay up to date. I am the WeedHead, so I'm at theweedhead.com, but I'm also able to be found at the Cannabis CEO on Instagram as well as Twitter. I'll be dropping some jewels on Twitter now. I got a little bit of followers, so I'm like, oh, let me drop some jewels. And of course, you can find us at facebook.com/the WeedHead, where we go live with She Blaze. I want them to be able to find us, girl.
Obviously the only way they are going to be able to find us is on the damn internet. But ultimately, hopefully you'll see the WeedHead because my internet right now sucks. So like pretty much I've been like the whole dang time. And so like hopefully my internet can last as we do all these virtual virtual webinars. And so I mean either way, we'll see how long it will last. Listen, they postponed the Olympics, they canceled the NBA, they've closed Disneyland. So as far as I'm concerned, like there's no expiration date on this quarantine. So I guess I will still be working on my abs, but it does look like it's going into the summertime. Because if they already took away my 420, I'm like, okay, well, dang, are we not celebrating the 4th of July fireworks or not? Like, so.
We may have to do the fireworks inside or from 6 feet away. I don't know, but
no Juneteenth barbecue.
I mean, I'm definitely hoping and wishing for everybody to have a safe and healthy quarantine time. If there are any tips you need for homeschooling, I am a mom who is homeschooled and got my son to boarding school. And of course, I just found out now he got to be homeschooled again. So it has definitely been quite the interesting ride, but we're making it. It's fun, it's family, and it's a lot of time, like I said, to really build the empire. I want to give one more plug for my Intro to Cannabis Business course. It is a $50 3-week educational seminar where we focus on everything from the root of the to the tip of the iceberg of the cannabis industry, the real science of cannabis, which we pulled over 2 lectures, as well as hemp and CBD options. Everybody gets a free ebook because, again, shipping, print, touching, coronavirus lasts for 6 days on things. I thought it would be easier if everybody got the ebook. $50 is the cost. And I mean, I just want as many people to be able to get this education while we have the opportunity and the time.
Well, shout out to the WeedHead for taking my suggestion and making it the ebook, because I almost thought she wasn't going to do that. I was like, I could go to the post office and I'm like, aren't you compromise? So shout out to her. And with the changing it to the ebook, she's giving you guys a discount. Crazy. So dope. So I mean, I am quarantined and trying not to go bananas. And maybe I'll be on a live breaking down some weed somewhere.
Please do it. People need to learn. Some folks still, they got questions. We've been getting questions from season 1 about all the different things you smoking. Now, if you took my course, you would go over the real science of cannabis, so you will know what all those things are. But it does help sometimes to hear from a cool girl like Cannabis Socialite who could break it down on what the latest concentrates are that can be added to your flower, how you do a balance across concentrates, flower, and edible. I think you are definitely one of the best in the game in terms of that balance.
I mean, I'm the one that I'm the one that's hanging out with the guys and like out smoking them, out eating them, the edibles. I don't know. I've definitely had to learn the hard way how to microdose the edible, so I could be the last man standing.
I love it. Love it.
So we'll see. Thank you guys for joining us back. We've been on our hiatus, but we are back, and we got some great tips for you. Hopefully, if you guys go into Dasheeda's DMs, you might get her to get us to go live a couple times in between She Blaze episodes. But DM her and harass her about it.
You're still the executive producer, boo. Where can they find She Blaze?
Well, you can watch She Blaze Facebook Live every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. and listen to us anytime on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. And make sure you're subscribing to theweedhead.com to stay up to date on what's blazing in the cannabis industry.
I love it. Well, until next time, let's keep your germs to yourself. Get your hand sanitizer. Spritz. I love you guys. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes. Have a great week.
Bye.